Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. So yeah, it says in the tour something interesting that ויש מוסיפים ואומרים ברוך משביע לרעבים. There are some who add also this blessing, which says, blessed is the one who satiates the hungry. So let's read inside the tour the whole thing here. It says also, Baruch Mashkir Tzmim. Also, he gives drink to this thirsty. Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Hazan et HaOlam וכולי, ואין אומרו שאינו מטביע מברכה ומוסיף גורע. So says the Torah, don't add these prayers. Why? Because they're not really what the sages made. And when you add to them, you're actually detracting from them. So it's not good to add extra things, which are not in the prayers. That's what he's saying, basically. So leave it out. Today, nobody has this, nobody says it, so it's pretty much, it's already history for us, But maybe at one time, right? This existed somewhere, somehow. Okay. So leave it out. And then he says, okay, let's see the Bet Yosef before we go on. So regarding this, Bet Yosef says, Mordechai Besov Brachot. It's written in the Mordechai, these prayers. Katuv B'Shem Sefer Pardes. It's written in the name of Sefer Pardes. Who wrote the Sefer Pardes? This is written by Rashi. Anyway, it says over there, he says, when you bless it as an individual, you shouldn't say these things. So it seems from his words that if he says it as zimun, you should say it there. This book says if you're blessing by yourself, you do say it. But the Torah says, right, don't say it at all, and that's the custom today. We don't say these things at all. So yeah, that's it. So then he brings a custom of the Rosh, the tour. He says, ואדוני רבי הראש ז"ל היה אומר כי לעולם חסדו ולא היה אומר עמנו. So he says he would say כי לעולם חסדו. That's how we say also, right? His kindness is forever. It doesn't say imanu, right? What does it mean imanu? With us, right? Imanu. We don't have that. Birkat Hamazon. Okay, great. You guys right know this name. There's a name like this, very famous name, Emmanuel. So there is a name like this in the Bible. So what does it mean literally, right? God is with us. That's what it means. Emmanuel. That's what it means, that name. So, it's become like a very famous name, whatever. So it goes on here. כלומר שיש נוהגים לומר האזן את הכל כולו בחסד ורחמים נותן לכם לכל בשר כי לעולם חסדו עמנו, right? They add that word also to the ברכת המזון, והראש לא היה אומר תיבת עמנו, and Rosh wouldn't say that, right? עמנו. וגם המורדכי כתב בשם ספר פרדס, Mordechai also says, right? שאין אומר, we shouldn't say that. Okay, so there you go, right? So the consensus is that we don't say it. כתב הכלבו, says הכלבו, יש אומרים שאין לומר בה כאמור, פותח את ידיך, רק חותמין ברוך אתה השם, right? So there's also another thing, which is that, do we say פותח את ידיך? So I think here, right, there's a difference between the Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. We Sfaradim, we say פותח את ידיך, and as far as I remember, the Ashkenazim don't say that. In my younger days, when I had dark hair, I used to pray with an Ashkenazi Sidur because I was in an Ashkenazi yeshiva, whatever. Until I discovered that I'm Sephardi, I discovered it sometime. So I remember I have some memories from back there, So I don't remember this Potechet Yadecha over there in the Ashkenazi one. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so all they do is just say Baruch Atah Hashem Hazan et Hakol, right? That's how they seal the first blessing of Birkat Hamazon. But Ishum pasuk with that, they don't say any verses there. But Tamad the Mistaberhu, so he says it makes sense, right, to do it like that. Ki ech navi pasuk shamo David Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what he says, right? He says, why? Because how can we bring a pasuk which was said by David HaMelech, right, King David, and say it with in a prayer which is made by Moshe Rabbeinu? Doesn't fit in, right? Then betana zo echrech. So says Bet Yosef, right, that he says that's not really good enough to negate this opinion. Okay, well, what can I tell you? And so it is our custom, on the Sfaradim, we do say it. How do we do it? We say, Potech et yadecha u'masbiach l'roch haratzon, and then we say the blessing, right? Baruch atah Hashem, hazan et hakol. Right, that's how we do it. Okay. Well, then it says, ואם לא אמר ברכת הזן, ואמר במקומה בריך רחמנא דמלכה מלכה מראה תהי פיתה יצא, right? So this is one of the famous things in the Talmud. It says in Masechet Brachot that, let's say he didn't say the first blessing, right? Hazan et Hakol. Instead, he said some Aramaic blessing, right? So let's see what this Aramaic blessing means. We'll go word by word, right? Here we go. Where is this? Yeah, so it says Barich Rachamana, right? So what does that mean? Blessed is God. Rachamana in Aramaic means God. But the word Rachamana, technically speaking, right, means like merciful, you know? Anyway, so it's Malka. What does Malka mean? Melech, right? It means king. Mared Hapita, right? And what does that mean? He's the owner of this bread. So if he says this declaration, blessing in Aramaic, he fulfills the obligation of the first blessing, you know, b'diavad. He really should say the proper, you know, text, but maybe he was in a hurry or something, whatever, you know, whatever. So he said the short version of it. Okay, I'll tell you guys something really funny. You know that in my younger days, I had a different rabbi. You know, before I hooked up with the Maran, and this rabbi, you know, he got famous for one thing. You know, he wrote he made like a mini Birkat Hamazon, you know, like a short version of it. And he was telling people, like, you can use this, you know, if you're in a hurry, whatever, you know, like whatever. Just it was like a little mini page, you know, and he would give it to people. He would like laminate it and give it to people, so people can do it, you know, whatever. So what he did was he made like a condensed version of the Birkat Hamazon, you know, without all the deluxe, right, you know, text over there, right? And you know, and this thing didn't really catch on too well, you know, this thing. So the truth is, you know, that later on when I got my right when I left that rabbi and went to Maran, so I saw actually that he wrote just the opposite of that. He said that you shouldn't do a short version of Birkat Hamazon, you know. So leave it the way it is and say it the way it is. That's what he said, you know. Even the last part, which is only a custom, you know, the Rachamana, you know, all that stuff. Even that, the rabbi was against, you know, leaving that out, you know, trying to shorten it, you know, and all kinds of stuff like that. He didn't like that. So, you know, the thing was that in the old days, right, if you look in the Sephardi Sidur, they have like this Birkat Hamazon for women, you know, like a short version of it. So they're using like this condensed, you know, form, you know, whatever. And this is probably, you know, this is not probably, but this is one of the things that they do. You know, they put that Aramaic thing, you know, there, you know, whatever. So, I mean, to make it short, and but the rabbi, you know, came out and said, Maran, that women shouldn't do this today, you know, even though it's written in the Sidurim. So you know, what's the reason why? This is like a custom already, you know, like a long time, you know, by women. They see the short one. So he said the reason is because now the ladies know how to read, you know. In the old days, ladies didn't know how to read. That's why they gave them a short one, you know, in order to like, you know, make it easier for them, facilitate their ability to pray. But now he says, you know, women know how to read already. You know, they're not illiterate like they used to be, whatever. So therefore, he said, right, that now everybody should say the full version of the Birkat Hamazon, right, without any shortcuts. So, you know, since then, when I saw the rabbi writing this, you know, I never touched that short stuff again, right? Never. Actually, the truth is, I never used it before. You know, even when before I never used it. But I was just curious about it, you know, whatever. But the rabbi was against it. So anyway, right, we're going through here the you know the texts of the Birkat Hamazon. What you know what it has to say there, you know, and what it has to be there, so forth and so on, right? This whole thing. So let's move on. So it says it's brought down there in the Gemara, right, regarding this Aramaic blessing, Mem Bet in the Brachot, and it's going to be explained. It says it's going to be. It was already explained in 167. So it says apparently, right, this blessing, you don't need to seal it, like we always seal blessings, Baruch Ata Hashem, like this, right? You don't have to do that. But the Rashba says, right, that it implies from here, so the Rashba says we learn from here that the text of the blessings does not really prevent you from fulfilling your obligation, as long as you keep the general format, of the blessing, the general idea. Okay, interesting. So it says, like we learned in the Mishnah, Perk Kama Yud Aleph, right? The first Perk Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, Makom Shamu Le'arich Eno Rasha Lekatzer, right? So there's a Gemara like this, right? That says that in a place where the rabbis want it to be long, don't shorten it. Don't make it short. So the Rashba says because of this, he says, I think that even the first blessing he didn't fulfill his obligation. Otherwise, unless he seals it, as we said, right? He has to do a seal. Why? It's because he says that the first blessing of Birkat Hamazon is long. Therefore, you have to say, right, Baruch, and then Baruch Rachamana, the Zan Kola. You have to also seal the blessing like this in Aramaic. So he says you have to do this in order to keep the format of the blessing, which is opening with Baruch and also closing with Baruch. Wow. Okay. Good. So yeah, we're halfway through this. Let's go on. So it says, Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer, right? It says Rabbi Eliezer, Kol Misha Lo Amar Eretz Chemda Uvchava. If you didn't say this, right? This text of the Birkat Hamazon, etc. It says there, if you don't say it, you didn't fulfill your obligation. And also it says that you have to put brit before the Torah. Where is this? In Mem Chet Amud Bet. ומפרש, הטמטם שצריך להקדים ברית לתורה, you have to put ברית before the Torah, שזו בשלושת בריתות וזו בי"ג בריתות. So he says, why? Because this one has 13 bריתות, right? Britot means covenants, right? But this one has 13 britot, 13 covenants. First one has 3, and this one has 13. It says in this book, Pirash Rabbeinu Binyamin, Lefi Shera'a Yehoshua et Moshe Rabbeinu. So it says there that since Yoshua saw Moshe Rabbeinu, he saw that he was, very much desiring to go into Eretz Israel, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, he really wanted to go in there. So he prayed on this, So it's also our forefathers, patriarchs. They all wanted to be in Eretz Israel. They all wanted to enter there and go in there. Also to be buried there, right? So he says, since he merited to go in there, he can be Birkat Eretz Chemda, right? So therefore, that's why he made this blessing, right? The second blessing, which was made by Yoshua. So what does it say there, right? He talks about Eretz Israel, the beauty of Eretz Israel. Thanking Hashem for giving us that blessed land. So you also have to mention Brit, right? The covenant. So why is that? So when Avraham Avinu, he circumcised, God, then at that point, he gave him the covenant, right, to enter into the land of Israel. That's what the Chazal say, right? That acquiring Eretz Israel requires circumcision. This is like a prerequisite to coming in there. So circumcision is a very big deal, by us, by the Jews. We have a lot of things that are at stake when it comes to that. And this is one of them, right? This is how you obtain Eretz Israel, by circumcising. Because the uncircumcised don't belong there in Eretz Israel. Okay, great. So then it says, you have to mention the Brita. So we said that. Okay, let's move on. So then he says, you also have to mention the Torah in Birkat Hamazon. Right? Because it says in the verse, Tehillim, Vayten lehem arsot goyim, ba'avur ishmeru chukav mitorotav mitzoru. Right? So that's the thing, that one thing is connected to the other. What does that mean? Hashem gave us Eretz Israel in order that we should study Torah. Right? One is connected with the other. So that's why you have to mention that too. When you mention Eretz Israel, you got to mention the Torah too, because it's like a package deal. You go in there, you're going in there for Torah, not to hold music festivals, right? Right? That people got into trouble because of that, right? All kinds of things like that. That's not where we went. We go to Eretz Israel to make all kinds of crazy, things going on there. We don't want that stuff. If you want to do crazy stuff, right, don't go over there. That's not the place to do it. Do it somewhere else. Okay. Because when you're in Eretz Israel, you're in the palace of the king. You know what I mean? So when you're in the palace of the king and you make trouble over there, the king will take care of you. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, right? You got to be careful about that. Okay, so let's go to Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, of course. It says Shulchan Aruch. Yesh Omrim Baruch Masbia L'Regim, right? As we said, right? There's all kinds of texts that people have, saying things like this, right? Baruch Masbia L'Regim. What does that mean? Blessed is the one who satiates the hungry. So we don't say that, right? That's not the part of the original, right? The text there. Korea. So it says when you add, you subtract, right? And by the way, this is like it's a general rule for the Torah, which is what when you add to the Torah, you're actually taking it away from it. It's like a general rule. Not a good thing to add it to the Torah. Don't add anything. It's perfect as it is, so just leave it the way it is. So then he says the other thing, right? Which is even if he said, right, let's say instead of saying Birkat Hazan Takol, which is the first blessing, he said the Aramaic version, right? Barich Rachamana Malka Demaret Dehapita, right? Yatsa, he fulfills obligation. So B'diavad, right? If he said it this way, the Aramaic way, the short way, he fulfills obligation B'diavad. Right? Some say some say you also have to seal it, right? What does that mean, seal it? Barich Rachamana Dezan Hakola, right? That finishes off the blessing, right? Seals it. Like we do, in the Hebrew text as well. That was the opinion of the Rashba, if you remember, right, in Bet Yosef, but we don't paskin like that, so that's about it. Okay, so we'll move on. See what we got here. I just want to mention also, by the way, that the sages stress, that Birkat Hamazon is a very powerful blessing, and therefore it can bring a lot of good things to a person, if he says it the proper way, proper concentration, right, all these things. So therefore, a person should really understand, right, that Birkat Hamazon is a big deal. It brings a lot of blessing, so make sure you do it right. You know, don't skimp on it. You know what I mean? Like, do it the right way. Um, so it says in Bet that we already mentioned it too, right? That the Rosh wouldn't say that, Imanu. Kaki Nuschat Rambam. That's the Rambam also says like that. It says the Bet Yosef. But Adoni Rabbi Arsa lo yamer, right? So right. So yeah, apparently the Rambam was saying it, but the Rosh was not saying it. וכן כתבו שם התוספות. התוספות also says like the Rosh. וכן משמע מפירוש רש"י, also Rashi seems to go like that. וגם המורדכי כתב בסוף ברכות, מורדכי also says, שאומר ברית ותורה, לא חש כמחה שלא רצה התלמוד לומר שיזכור התיבות ממש אלא מעניינם, ועל בריתך היינו ברית, ועל תורתך היינו תורה. So what is he saying here? That the Mordechai also says at the end of Brachot that if you say Brit and Torah, right, you have to mention those two things in the Birkat Hamazon. He won't lack sustenance, right, if he does that. So he says, why is that? The Talmud didn't want to say, right, you should mention the words like literally. Ela minyanam she'al britcha hainu brit ve'al toratecha hainu Torah. Right, so okay, I think I understand what he's saying. I think I didn't say it right. So I'll reiterate that one more time. This time, hopefully, the right way. Okay, so one more time. Who was this? The Mordechai, right? He says like this: if you say Brit and Torah like just like that, right? That's not good. In other words, he says the proper way to do it is to say. She'al beitecha ve'al toratecha, like this, This is the language we use. So in other words, he's telling you that don't take it literally, you have to say Brit and Torah, like the word like that. It means you have to say those words, but in a little bit of a different format. Not exactly just those words, like raw product there. Okay, that's good. So that was Bet. Let's see Shulchan Aruch. It says Shulchan Aruch, ברכת הארץ לראש לא יאמר שהנחלת לאבותינו ארץ חמדת ברית ותורה, שהרי אומר על בריתך שחתמת ביוספנו ועל תורתך שמנתנו, ודי בפעם אחד, ורמב"ם חולק, right? So the Rosh says that Don't say Brit v'Torah, but what you do say is Al Britcha, right? Al Toratecha, like this, in this format. But the Rambam says no, you should say both, right? Whatever. So this is like a machloket regarding the text over here of the Birkat Hamazon. Yeah, interesting. So it says here in the Ramah that the Rosh is the correct version of this, right? So you can see from there the Ashkenazim are going to do like that, like the Rosh. Apparently, that Sfardim will not, right? That's pretty much what it is. They go like the Rambam, probably. Okay, good. You know what? Since my sitter is like handy, close at hand, I'm gonna pull it out and check, right, just in case. Let's see what it really says there. Okay, give me a second here. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Yeah, so I see in my Sidur that it's like the Rosh, So apparently, right, the custom of the Rambam seems to have gotten right sidetracked. Some nobody seems to do it anymore. Interesting. Maybe the Yemenites. You never know. You have to look at the Yemenites Siddur, right? Not sure about that. Okay, interesting. So it looks like the Rosh won this one, right? Won this battle over here. Okay, good. Let's go to Gimel. Right, so this is interesting. It says over here like this. Katava Kobo, right? It says Bet Yosef. The Kobo writes, B'Shem Ravad, name the Ravad, the Nashim Be'avadim lo amre lehu, the Nashim lav b'nei Brit ninhu. Be'avadim lo b'nei Torah ninhu. Wow. It's very interesting, right? According to this opinion, right, women and slaves, right, they're not going to say these things. So what does that mean? He says the nashim are not connected to the brit, right? In other words, they don't circumcise, right? I'm assuming you ladies haven't circumcised, right? I can safely assume that. Okay, so that's the whole thing, right? So he says they're not. It's not. They're not connected to that, so they don't have to say it. They don't have to mention it. And also, he says when it comes to slaves, right? They don't say Torah. Why? Because they're not really connected to the Torah. Okay, whatever. But it's not really so. I mean, today nobody minds this. Nobody cares for this stuff because we all say the same Birkat Hamazon, right? Nobody changes it for women or for slaves, right? Slaves, slavery is already something in the past, right? So I'm not talking about that. Anyway, so then it brings Bedek Abayit, B'Timiani, the Avadim itnu b'mitzot Sheisha chayevet. So now, right, comes the Beit Yosef, right, in the Birkat, and says, wait a second, right, what's going on here? He says, what, slaves don't have any Torah? But the truth is, right, that we find in the Gemara, in Chagiga, Dal Amud Aleph, it says over there that slaves are obligated in all the mitzvot that the women are obligated. So they do have some Torah, otherwise how are they going to do the mitzvot? So they have a portion in the Torah. That's one thing, right? וגם על אנשים יש לדון שאם אין נקראת אדם, right? So he says also regarding the women, he says also there's what to talk about there. Why is that? Look what he says. Okay, he says he says why? Because a person is not called Adam, right? Until what? Until he gets married. Right? That's what it says in the Zohar also, right? If you don't get married, you're only a fraction of a person. You're a fraction, right? So, can you imagine calling somebody who's single? Are you single? Oh, you're a fraction. Okay, you're a fraction of a person. That's what you are, right? When you're single, you're a fraction. So, so you're not really completely a man. Adam. You're not Adam without being married. So, what does it have to do with our discussion? So it has to do with it. Why? Because since you're not called Adam, if you're not married, so therefore the woman is also part of that, concept, right, of Adam. Without her, you can't do it. So therefore, even though they don't circumcise the women, but since they're a part of us, we're like together, one unit, really. So therefore, they also have a portion in that. That's what he's trying to say. Okay, that's very nice. So therefore, right, a man and woman is one body, right? It's one unit. So therefore they can say, they can mention the Brit, the covenant. Why? Because they're part of the game, right? They're involved in that. There you go. Okay, sounds good to me. So anyway, let's go on. So it says Rav Abba Amar Tzarich Shiazkir Ba Hoda'at Techila V'Sof. So this rabbi adds something else here, right? You also have to talk about Thanksgiving, in the Birkat Hamazon. Thanking God. Hoda'ah. Right? In the beginning he says, and also in the end. You have to mention it twice. So he says the Beit Yosef, Gam Zeh Perek Shlosha Shachru. It's also there in Gemara. Mem Tet Amud Aleph, Uperesh Rashi, Betchila V'Sof Nodeh Lecha, right, Hashem Elokeinu, V'al Kulam, Hashem Elokeinu, Anu Modim Lach. So this is the text of the Birkat Hamazon. And Rashi says, right, that's where we mention this thing. So what does that mean? We say, Anu Modim Lach. What does that mean? We thank you. So we give thanksgiving in the Birkat Hamazon. So there is a thanksgiving element in the Birkat Hamazon. Okay, very good. The Chotem al Haaretz ve'al Hamazon. And second blessing, how does he seal it? Right? Baruch Atah Hashem al Haaretz ve'al Hamazon. Like this, right? For those who say it in a different language, I'm not going to translate it. Forget about it. Your siddur will do it, right? Whatever. So, Mefaresh beperek shlosha she'achlu. So it says, it's written in this parak, right, in Gemara there, in Brachot, Sham delet be mishum chotamim b'shanim demashma eretz de'avda mazon. והחותם ברוך מנחיל לעשות הרי זה מגונה. So he says, right, that if you say this thing, right, you blessed is the one who it bequeaths the lands. Apparently, there are some people who had this text in this blessing, right? Which is the second blessing. So it's telling you, right, that you got to can this one because right, it's disgraceful. Why is it disgraceful? גם זה פרק שלושה שאנחנו עושים לגמרא, ונראה לי דתמה משום דמנחיל ארצות שייך גם לשאר עמים. So it says because, giving lands also applies to other nations. Every nation has been given, allotted some land, right? So, it's no big deal. I mean, it doesn't mention the uniqueness of the Jewish people by saying this, so therefore it's not proper to say this blessing like that. Okay, good to know. So, good to know. We just follow the Siddur, right? We have whatever's in the Siddur, we do it. I mean, but anyway, right? We are going through the text over here, just to analyze everything. You have to keep in mind that in the old days, before the printing press, and all that stuff, they didn't have Siddurim, people. Everything was being said by heart, so things have changed, You just have to memorize it. That's the way it was done. Okay, good. So, what else do we have here? A little bit more. So then it says the two, right? Something very strong, right? Whoever changes, right, the text of the Birkat Hamazon, tries to alter it, don't make alterations into these prayers. They're perfect the way they are. Don't touch it. This is what we say, right? So, or also, right, if he didn't mention whatever the sage is obligated to mention in the Birkat Hamazon, he did not fulfill his obligation, so that's why, right, again, the best thing to do is look in your Siddur, just follow it along, and don't embellish, right, and don't improvise with Birkat Hamazon, right, not a good idea, just follow the red line, as they say, right, follow that dotted line, that's it, don't play games with that, don't change anything. There are some people like this, they like to embellish. They're into embellishing prayers, stuff like that. God help them. What can I tell you? So then it says, מה שכתב רבנו נראה לי, כיוון דברכת המזון ברייתא, לעיכובה כאמר וצריך לחזור. So he says, since Birkat Hamazon is from the Torah, says the Torah, therefore, right, you have to do it again if you didn't say it properly. What does that mean? You left some things out, right? You didn't mention the whole thing, which is necessary, right? According to the sages and so forth, so on. So therefore, he says you got to go back and do it again. So don't play around, Don't play with that stuff. Leave it the way it is, the original format. That's it. Okay, so now, right, it says regarding this, the Bet Yosef, יש לדחות דנהי דברכות המזון, דאורייתא המטבע שלה או דרבנן. So it says Bet Yosef, a good point, right, which is that even though Birkat Hamazon is from the Torah, but the precise text is not really from the Torah, right, as we said, right? It was written by some, big rabbis, some sages, whatever, right, all this stuff. So, it's not exactly like that. Every little word, every little nuance over there is from the Torah. The basic idea is from the Torah. That's the idea. No, not every little thing there. Not every little nook and cranny there is from the Torah. This doesn't go that far. Okay, so the so it says therefore, b'diavad, right? If he didn't do all these things, it could be that he fulfills obligation because after all, these little embellishments there, little details, they're rabbinical. They're not from the Torah. But from the Rambam, he says, Mashma de Yukuba Kamar. The Rambam also seems to say, right, that it does actually, right, it does prevent you from fulfilling your obligation if you missed all these little details that we mentioned. Like the tour. The Rosh also says, right? כל שלא אמר ברית ותורה, בברכת המזון, ברכת הארץ ומלכות בית דוד מכיווני ירושלים, לא יצא ידי חובתו. So Rosh also says, right? If you skip some things over there, which are crucial, you know, like we said, right? Brit, Torah, you didn't mention the kingdom of Bet David, right? The kingdom of David, all kinds of things like this. You didn't fulfill your obligations. You have to go back and do it again. וכן וכולו, אם לא אמר, לא יצא ידי חובתו, ומדיע תניא בתוספתא, it also says in תוספתא, says רבי יוסי אומר, רבי יוסי says, אף מי שלא הזכיר ברית בשל הארץ, מחזירין אותו. Right, so he says, if you didn't mention the brit in the second blessing, we can tell you to do it again. וכתבה רשב"א בפרק אין מועדים, רשב"א also writes it בפרק אין מועדים, וכן כתב בהדיא בירושלמי, ירושלמי says like this, סוף פרק כמה דברכות, in the first chapter of ברכות, ואם לא הזכיר תורה בארץ, מחזין אותו. It says there, right? If they didn't mention the Torah in the land, we tell them to go back and do it again. אם לא הזכיר ברית בארץ, also didn't mention ברית, או שלא הזכיר בבני ירושלים, also in בני ירושלים, מלכות בית דוד, didn't mention the kingdom of David, מחזין אותו, he has to go back. So you see, right, that the sages were stringent about this, you know, that if you miss some of these crucial elements, you got to go back and do it again. So, right, keep your sitter handy and just follow, right? Follow along, you know, don't play games. Chanukah, Purim, Omrim Ba, Alanisim, right? And then it says the tour, and Chanukah and Purim, right? We say also Alanisim in the Birkat Hamazon, as you know, right? We add that in. Where does Alanisim go? It goes in the second blessing of Birkat Hamazon. שיגיע למקום שאתה מכונן. When he gets to this place about Tachonен, so where is this written? It says Bet Yosef is brought down the Gemara, right? Bamim Badikin, which is in Shabbat Chavdal Amud Aleph. Asikna beChanukah. So it concludes over there. The Chanukah en tzarich leaskir Birkat Hamazon. Ve'im ba leaskir maskir be'odah. You don't have to mention it says, but if you did mention it, do it in the second one. But the poskim said you do have to mention it. Right, so that's our custom, by the way, that we do mention Al Nisim in the Birkat Hamazon. But if you forgot to say it, right, and you finish that blessing, the second blessing, you can just finish it. Right? You don't have to go back and do it again. This halakha when it comes to Al Nisim. Okay, great. So we're almost done with this chapter here. So it says like this: "Ve'im shachach v'lo amro, en tzarich lechazor." So it says if he forgot, right, didn't say it, you'd have to go back, as we said, right? We're talking about Al Nisim. If you forgot it, you didn't mention it, you finished the blessing, don't go back. So it says Bet Yosef, Pashutu Share Amro and Tzarich Laskir, because we already said, right, you don't really have to mention it. Ve'ach efshar lamar shetzarich lechazor. So how can you say you have to go back and do it again? Ima lo iskir, if you didn't mention it. V'chein katav Rambam, so the Rambam says, Bet Mikatav Samag says, Z'achi tanya b'tosefta brachot. That's what it says in the Tosefta also. Uvegadot Maimon, Uvegadot Maimon, also this commentary of the Rambam, Halashot, right, new one, Katub Rabbi Sober. It says that the Rabbi holds Shechozer. You have to go back, actually, if you miss Al Nisim. We don't pass it like that. Because Amin Abi Yerushalmi, like the saying Yerushalmi, but they pushed him, right, they deflected him. V'gam Bal Tumot Tadeshen, also this rabbi, Katab B'siman Lamed Chet, it says over there in chapter Lamed Chet 38, the law Kaimalan de Achi, we don't hold like that. Even if you remembered it right away after you finish the second blessing, that's only if you finished the blessing, right? But if you didn't finish the blessing yet, you can still go back and do it, right? No problem. Also says even if you get to Rachaman, right? The Rachamans, Yomar Rachaman Aseh Asim. So you can do it over there, right? That he did miracles for us. You can say it over there. right? ונפלאות עמנו. כמו שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם, בזמן הזה, בימי מתתיהו בן יוחנן, כהן גדול, this is a text that you would say over there. לכן יעשה בפורים. Same thing with Purim. So in other words, there is a way, according to this opinion, to make it up by saying it in the end, with the rachamans. But the truth is, that this is not an obligation. This is just sort of compromised makeup, not really the proper makeup here. Right? But some people, you can do it. You don't really have to do this, but you can if you want. If you feel indebted, your heart feels indebted to mention it, so you can do it over there with the rachamans. Okay, so let's see Shulchan Aruch, and we're done. And we're done with this chapter too. Okay. So there you go. So it says here, Shulchan Aruch, if you didn't mention the second blessing, right? The Brit and the Torah, even if you're just lacking one of them, right? Not both. They have to go back and do it again. Can you imagine? Just because you missed those two words, whatever. Says the Rabbi here, so he says, right, but the women don't say this. The Nashim la b'nei brit, because they're not b'nei brit, right? They're not circumcised. And the slaves are not in the Torah, right? But the truth is, as we said, right, that Shulchan Aruch doesn't pass in this way. We do say it. That's interesting. I wonder if the Ashkenazim do like the Ramah here, that they don't say this to women. Interesting. Okay, could be. You never know. Since I was never a woman, I cannot tell you, right? That I cannot tell you. I was once Ashkenazi, like I used to, but I was never a woman, so forget about that. Okay, so that's something else, right? Thank God. Okay, so anyway, right? One gender is enough for us, right? We're Jewish. We Jewish people, we're not two gender. We're not bi-gender people. Okay, so that's the thing, right? So okay, fine. So what else we got here? Right, so then we got one more here in the Shulchan Aruch. If you didn't mention it in the blessing of Jerusalem, right? The Malchut Bet David, kingdom of David, he has to go back also on that one, right? So these things are crucial, You got to mention every one of them. That's why, stick to the siddur, right? The siddur won't lead you wrong, right? It won't guide you the wrong way. If you just read through it, everything will be good. So it says the Rama, as we said, right, we also do Ananisim, right? Hanukkah and Purim. Before the third, before in the second blessing we do it, right? If he didn't say it in Machzir, he doesn't have to go back. But he says you can do it in Rachamans, as we said, right? He can do it. He doesn't really have to do it, but he can if he wants. He likes to, do that. He likes extra credit. So let's go there. You can say like this, right? The Rachaman make us nisim, right? The miracles, right? Like he made in those days. That's the custom, he says, right? That they do it over there. They make it up over there. And the truth is, by us as Sfaradim, it's not really so much a custom. But anyway, right? That's the story there. So I think we're done with this chapter. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, we're done. So I ran through a little bit, but I hope you'll forgive me. If you didn't catch everything, listen to it again, the class, right? The next time you'll catch it. Okay. It's always good to do a review, Okay. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch. And we will see you tomorrow, one more day, right? All right. Chazak.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless.
Thank you so much.
All the best.